I remember the exact weight of that silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that happens when a room goes quiet. It was the kind that presses against your chest from the inside, the kind you feel before you understand why. She was sitting across from me. Her mother, her father, her two uncles, all of them looking at me the way people look at someone who just won something. Expectant, celebratory. And then she said the words, "I'm pregnant, it's yours." I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I just sat there with my hands on my knees, nodding slowly, the way you nod when someone is speaking and you're still processing the language they're using. Like the meaning of the words hadn't arrived yet. Like they were still traveling from my ears to my brain. But they arrived. Oh, they arrived. You need to understand something about me. 4 years ago, I was in an accident. Nothing dramatic to talk about: a collision, a hospital, a long recovery. But there was one thing the doctors told me that I never told anyone else. Not my parents, not my friends, no one. I would never be able to have children. And here's the strange part. It didn't destroy me. I had always thought I didn't want them. So in a terrible, quiet way, the decision had been made for me, and I accepted it. I filed it away. I moved on. If you're following this story, subscribe. Stay with me. What comes next matters more than anything I understood until now. I finished my master's degree. I got a good job. I started looking at what the rest of my life could look like on my own terms, for once. That was the first problem, because my terms and my parents' terms had never been the same thing. She came into my life through them, a friend of the family, the kind of introduction that comes wrapped in suggestion. She's a good girl, smart, comes from a good family. Just meet her. I met her, and she was pleasant, agreeable. She smiled at everything I said. She liked everything I liked. She had no opinions that contradicted mine, which, at the time, I told myself was a kind of peace. She said she didn't want children either. She said it so easily, like it was a small thing, like she'd already thought about it and landed there. I thought, finally, someone who fits. I was a fool. But I didn't know that yet. We weren't together long before things changed. A night that felt like progress. A morning that felt suddenly different. After that, she started answering my messages with single letters. K. Okay. She stopped calling first. She seemed far away even when we were talking. I told myself it was her processing something. Maybe the intimacy of it. Maybe she was uncertain about us. I gave her space. I waited. Then one afternoon, without any warning, her entire family showed up at my door. And she told me she was pregnant. I sat with that sentence for a long time, inside, where no one could see. I'm pregnant, it's yours. My face stayed calm. I think I even nodded again. The kind of automatic movement that happens when your body is buying time for your mind. Her father was already talking. Something about expectations. Something about what happens next. Her mother was looking at my apartment, already rearranging it in her head. And I was doing math, quietly. Privately. The kind of math that doesn't need a calculator because the answer is always the same, no matter how many times you check it. It's yours. That's when it hit me. Not as an accusation. Not as anger. Just as a fact that refused to fit inside the shape of what I was being told. Because it couldn't be mine. It was biologically impossible. Medically documented. Confirmed by 2 doctors in a clinic 4 years ago. Whatever was happening in this room, whatever this was, it was not that. I excused myself. I said I needed water. I went to the kitchen and stood at the counter with both hands flat on the surface, staring at the faucet. I ran through it again, not to convince myself, but because part of me, the part that still wanted to believe in good faith, needed to rule out every other possibility before arriving at the only one that was left. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe the doctors were wrong. But they weren't. I knew they weren't. Maybe she had been with someone else and didn't know it wasn't mine. But she had told me directly, "It's yours," with her parents sitting next to her. That's not confusion. That's a claim. And then standing there alone with the noise of her family drifting in from the next room, I arrived at the only explanation that made any sense. That was the moment I understood. Not a mistake. Not confusion. A plan. I stood there for probably 2 minutes. Maybe 3. Then I poured a glass of water I didn't drink, walked back out, and sat down. "I'd like a little time to process this," I said. Her father nodded like I'd said something sensible. Her mother smiled. She looked at her hands, like they didn't belong to her anymore. That night, after they left, I called in sick to work. I made one appointment, then another. And I cried. Not because of her, not because of the lie, because something in me finally understood what had been happening all along. I hadn't cried like that since I was 14 years old. It wasn't about her. It wasn't even about the lie. It was about something older than all of that. The weight of a life spent being managed, directed, arranged. The feeling of being a piece moved across a board by hands that thought they knew better. Nothing about that life was ever really mine. She came over the next morning. I had asked her to come alone. She didn't. Her parents were with her. They stood in the hallway like they belonged there, like my home was already shared property, like the question had already been answered. I stepped outside to meet them. I said her parents would need to wait downstairs. Her father started raising his voice before I finished the sentence. I waited for him to stop. Then I repeated myself, calmly. They went downstairs. She came inside. She sat on the chair by the window. I sat across from her. I didn't bring up the pregnancy right away. I asked her how she was. She said fine. I asked if she wanted tea. She said no. Then I placed the pregnancy test on the table between us. Not as an accusation, just something that needed to exist in the room. I need to see it confirmed, I said. She didn't touch it. Not right away. She just looked at it. Then at me, like she already understood what it meant. Something shifted in her face. Not anger. Not yet. Something tighter than that. Like options closing one by one. Then the anger came. She stood up. She raised her voice. She said I was humiliating her, that I was being cruel, that no man who cared about her would ask her to prove something like this. I stayed seated. I didn't raise my voice back. I'm not asking you to prove anything about yourself, I said. I'm asking you to confirm a fact. She walked out and called her parents upstairs. For the next hour, 4 people stood in my living room and told me what kind of man I was, what I owed, what I had done, what I was refusing to take responsibility for. I let them finish. Then I told them to leave. Her father said, that wasn't my decision to make. I told him it was, because it was my home. They left. I stood at the window and watched the street go quiet below. And then my phone started ringing. My parents, I picked up. My mother spoke first, before I said a word. Do you have good news? That's when everything changed. Again. Because she wasn't asking. She already knew what the news was supposed to be. I hung up. I sat down on the floor with my back against the couch. And for the second time in 2 days, I cried. But this time it was different. This time I understood the full shape of it. Not just her. Not just her family. My parents too. All of them together. Constructing something around me so carefully that I had walked right into it without seeing the walls. Nothing about that life was ever really mine. I thought about every time I had done what was expected. Every time I had swallowed what I actually wanted. Every exam passed for them. Every choice deferred. Every version of myself I had folded away to fit into the space they designed. And I thought, no more. I didn't call them back that night. I blocked the relatives who started messaging me by morning. 2 days later, I sent my parents a message that said exactly what I needed it to say and nothing more. Don't contact me, not for anything. The weight that left my chest after I sent that was almost physical. I kept the clinic appointment I had made. I started the process of making permanent what had already been true for 4 years, a decision for me, by me, about my own body, that I would one day share with someone I chose on my own terms. Not arranged, not managed, mine. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry. Honestly, not anymore. Anger takes energy, and I needed that energy for something else, for the quiet, slow work of figuring out what my life looks like when I'm the one choosing it. I learned something from all of it. Not a lesson I'd wish on anyone, but a real one. The people who love you shouldn't need to trap you, and the life that fits you shouldn't require that you disappear inside it. Nothing about that life was ever really mine. And for the first time, that felt like freedom. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. There are more like this. Some truths only make sense once everything ends.